All right. Hello, everyone. We are Cadence. So I wanted to start with a question for you all. Who is not using ChatGPT today for their work? Who is not using ChatGPT today for work? Yeah, or for any other reason. Not using ChatGPT at all. Oh, let me ask the question the other way around. Who is using ChatGPT today? Surprise, right? Surprise. So AI is changing the way we build software. Let's focus on just software specifically for the time being. You all folks know that you can give a prompt to a language model and give you code that sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't work. And that's an evolving art today. People are getting better and better making these prompts that can generate software that has a high probability of working on the first time. Now, the chatbot analogy, the chatbot user interface has a problem that I like to illustrate in this way. Imagine you had a magic pencil that you can draw anything and makes it real, it just appears. But what happens with everyone that doesn't know how to draw? So I hope that makes sense. The same problem happens with chatbots, which is it's an empty box where you can type pretty much anything you want, but you don't necessarily know how to ask or what to ask. What is the right question or the right prompt that you need to give to the machine? And this goes beyond just the art of prompting. I'll go into what I mean by that in a second. If you abstract at the process of making software a little bit, historically it's something like this. You have people making software, and you have users, stakeholders, people that are going to be benefiting from software. And this is a conversation. So you go to them. This is what I've been doing for a living for many years. You engage them. You ask them questions. You know what are the right questions to ask because you have been doing this for a while. You understand their context. You understand their domain a little bit. So you engage in this social conversation to extract what's meaningful for you to design a piece of software that's going to be specific for them. So you go back to your shop. You spend some time coding, designing, coding, and then you go back, you show it to them, you have some feedback, and you iterate, and so on. So it's this loop of having these tailored questions and meaningful answers that help you inform the design of the piece of software that you're going to be building for them. And to solve this problem, because we're going to see a little more of that in a second, there's not enough software engineers or software makers in the world to make all the software that's needed. To leverage language models in a more meaningful way, we're building this platform that automates in a way that's the loop that we were just seeing, which is asking domain-specific questions, expert questions, to the people that are going to be using software. With that information, making specifications for software, from there going to generating code, deploying that code automatically, so that way you can have, in just a matter of minutes, by asking a series of questions that are specific to your problem and to your industry and to your domain, a piece of software that maybe is the first version of it, but then you can begin using it right away. And that means you can go from idea to working software in just minutes, and from there, prototype, test, and validate, number one, if your idea is the right idea, if your idea makes sense or not, but then also iterate and improve on it, and get validation whether or not the idea works or not.
Awesome. Let's dive in to see how this works with an example. Our example specifically has to do with manufacturing operations. We'll see here that we built an interface that's tailored specifically for the kinds of questions you'd want to ask if you're building an operations tool in manufacturing. As a result, you can see that our platform doesn't just automate code. It doesn't just automate deployment. It takes that concept and expands it by automating the questions that you'd want to ask for specific domains. In this case, the more procedural questions that go into building a more operational manufacturing application. It also gives context on what are the best practices for the kinds of questions and the kinds of answers and how to structure them. So you can get high quality code that you can subsequently automatically deploy. So you can immediately get feedback from your customers and add value to them. Awesome. So let's dive further into the specific target market that we want to go into with this application. Before that, the biggest problem we want to solve is that the world doesn't have enough software development bandwidth. We see that a lot of software development bandwidth and resources is converged among big tech. A lot of these digital big tech companies they can build applications 50% faster than traditional organizations. As a result, there's a gap here that we want to bridge. And let's talk further about our next steps to do so. Our initial target market, we want to be scrappy and lean. We'll actually, once building a prototype of our platform, use it ourselves to help solve some contracts that you might find on Upwork and Fiverr. That way we can build 10x faster than any contractor you might see on these platforms, while at the same time expanding the platform's capabilities and making it much, much more higher quality so that we can move to our next step, which is building internal applications for operations teams. We chose this as the best target market to start with because they, more than any other team, lack engineering bandwidth. They're the last on the prioritization schedule for business units compared to, say, core engineering teams in the company. Furthermore, they require custom capabilities not available in low-code platforms like Retool. Take the example we saw earlier with manufacturing operations. That specifically was an application for uploading a 3D image for a manufacturer that can subsequently be analyzed. That's not something that pre-built low-code components like Retool can do, but it's something that our platform can provide our customers. This leads us to our long-term goal. We want to build a high stickiness through customer-specific capabilities. We talked earlier about how we're aiming to build prompts that are specific to each industry and tech stack so that we can tailor our questions to users' specific needs. Beyond that, we want to take it a step further by building embeddings specific to each customer's code base and needs. That way we can produce code and produce applications that are 10 times better than any incumbent or competitor can provide, keeping us as a sticky platform for our customers. The market for this is huge. Our beachhead alone has hundreds of millions of dollars of value for internal operations teams, with hundreds of thousands of users and thousands of dollars of value generated per year per user. Beyond that, the app development services market as a whole is not just already hundreds of billions of dollars, but is expanding as AI continues to make software development faster.
Thank you. And we can say with confidence that our platform is the only platform that's enabled to ask the right questions. As I was trying to indicate before, we think this is a really important in the process of making software, because it's not, you can go just from idea to pixels, or from pixels from pixels to working software. There are these experts. You have designers, we have PMs, we have engineers that are involved in this chain, this production chain, each of them experts in their own verticals. But with the use of LLM, we can automate a big part of this process in a meaningful way. But just being smart how we stitch together the language models that serve these different roles. Another interesting aspect of our approach is that because you can go now from idea to working software so quickly, we're almost making prototyping tools obsolete. I as a designer, have spent countless hours building prototypes, wiring them, so I can run a test to see if the idea works, but then that's disposable work, right? That's a disposable prototype. Now I can have my working piece of software that if it works, I can just keep using it, right? Even more so, that's faster than making my old Figma wire prototypes. And hope that makes sense. Just to give a little bit more information about why we think this is a good idea, we've been speaking to people. People think this is a good idea. Most of them think they are interested in buying it. They're willing to pay money for it, begin using it right away. And we have the first version of working prototype, which we put together in the last 2 days. So that's what we had to share with you. I'm Pablo. I've been making software for a number of years. I'm a human-centric design leader. I formed 3 companies before. More recently, I've been working as an executive in design and in product. I built a handful of products that are used by millions of people in banking and finance. I studied human-computer interaction, currently Mellon, and AI strategy at MIT.
Hi, I'm Sahil. I've co-founded and shipped products that have been AI mobile applications for more than 5,000 consumers. More than that, while studying at Berkeley, I've experienced the pain of non-technical founders, non-technical app builders trying to build genuinely impactful applications. So I have deep expertise and empathy for the problem that we're tackling here. Thank you so much, y'all.
Please, Kelly. Yeah, we can take turns.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Here, okay, grab this one.
Okay, cool.
So when you're talking about applications, are they specifically web apps? I mean, or is it also a piece of code that just is sort of an internal component that could just be a little REST system? Like, what is your vision for How many different kinds of software are you talking about?
I think we can. I think we want to focus on things that are used by humans in the beginning, because there's this loop that we were talking about. That's where we think we can provide the most value. So maybe not an API, but yes, something that has a user interface. If it's a web app or a mobile app, our first prototype does React, but that means we can very easily go to React Mobile and build mobile apps. But we're starting with React just because how pervasive it is, right? I hope that answers the question. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. So in the normal product workflow, when you have a product manager try to define, these things, there are a few steps in the middle, right? I mean, you create kind of a user requirement, you create a user story, create an epic. Did you think of going through those abstraction layers for the model to create, either for documentation's sake or for human verification in the middle to get better outputs? Or are you kind of trying to cut the middleman completely from the product development perspective in that, if you get what I mean?
Yeah, I love the question. I like to slice it into two different parts. One is whether or not the those abstractions are used by practitioners are useful. And I think that's something that we'll need to discover as we expand the platform. For example, right now in our current prototype, we have the model generate a PRD, a set of requirements and technical specs before we ask the models to generate code. Because we learned that one of the things that makes code generation more stable is asking small questions, solving a small problem. So you say, hey, generate one React component at a time. And that gives you high probabilities that the React component is going to work right away.
So you actually also bring in functions of product definition, architecture to
exactly.
sense, right? So
exactly.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Exactly. And I theorize that because the language model is based in the way people have written their thinking, by using those same artifacts, then you can make better use of the model. Now to the second part of your question, whether we want to move people away from the process, I think an interesting way to look at that problem is just that there's simply not enough PMs in the world. There's not enough designers, not enough engineers. And then for everybody that does not have a designer, we can have a model. I don't think a model can or should replace a human. Yeah, but it's just that there's not enough of us, right? Yeah. And this project is also a little bit of an intent of me trying to serve more people, if that makes sense. Yeah. Any other questions?
Lyndon, I saw that online you had your hand up. Do you have a question?
No, I think that was from the previous.
Got it. Yeah, I think there's one in the chat. So Mike DKL, he said, my bias suggestion would be to create a DevOps solution to create infrastructure as code plans to perform tasks such as creating a VPC with proper network, subnet security group, etc. And then layout from real language descriptions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love the suggestion. As a matter of fact, we received that feedback a couple times in the last couple of days from people saying, you should really do DevOps. We decided because we wanted to focus a little bit on the human aspect, to focus on the front end for now. But I think it's also necessary because we want these solutions to be self-managed as well. That's what will make it easy for non-experts. And that implies we need to do in due time, really smart DevOps, right?
Yeah, just to add on to that in terms of why we chose a bit more on the app building side rather than DevOps side immediately. We're talking about the customer segment that feels the most pain is those that don't have the engineering bandwidth to even think that deeply about whether or not this should be built, let alone DevOps. This is why we're approaching this first as a software development solution for app development, especially prototype development as our beachhead, and then moving into DevOps as we expand and get more traction.
Paul, you had a question too. You want to take the next one?
So more on the technical side.
Yeah.
How many API calls to OpenAI do you need to make?
That's a great question.
It feels like it's proportional to the number of components.
Yeah, it is proportional to the number of components. Exactly. We have currently one API call per component. And more than that, we have an API call to generate what the components are. It's like Pablo said, is that we have a sequence of about 5 or 6 API calls from the input you saw there, just to get into the PRD and the technical requirements that go into the code. Then we have all those API calls that go into splicing up the code bit by bit so that we can generate high quality. We don't want this code full of bugs at the same time. Something that we're implementing, planning to implement after the fact as well, is a recursive agent that can sequence out what are the bugs that are already out there. Let me feed this into the model so that the user doesn't have to think about all these bugs after the fact.
And also, like, are you limited by the context window in any way? In which way would you want, you're using 8K model, presumably, right? Sort of, if it were 32K, how would you take advantage of that?
So two sides to that. One is that we are learning, and I think prompt for coding is still like an evolving art. We learned that the more specific you make your prompts for code generation.
The mic is off.
It's off? Okay.
Must have accidentally pushed the button.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry.
I'll start again. Sorry. First, I was trying to say that we are learning that the more specific you make the prompt, the better the quality of the output tends to be. So those are maybe the system part is a little bit longer because we're saying this is what we give back the whole structure of the application every time to be sure that everything's consistent. But then at the same time, the output is 5 lines of code, right? A small component. But the other part is that I think we'll over time want to use embeddings to learn the whole code base. So that way, the model itself is kind of like learning your code base, and that way you can do smarter things. You can also ask questions about your code base, like, oh, where is this part of the logic in the code, and solve all those like big code base problems that exist out there, if that makes sense. So that's the way we're trying to solve that problem. Just keeping it small bits and using embeddings.
One more question. This will be the last one for this.
How do you imagine the back and forth, requirements changing, cycle to go as you kind of go from initial prototype out through that process?
I think we will need to give people a certain amount of credits, and after they pay a little bit extra. But I think we need to manage capacity here because it's like it's not like regular SaaS platforms. Computational cost is a thing, so maybe we give you a number of iterations. But we haven't gotten that far to figure out what those numbers are. But we need to have some control mechanism, I guess.
Yeah, one possible solution, if say we have infinite control, or no need for control, is having an interface where you can chat back to our platform with the questions tailored, and say, I need to add this feature. What do you think? And then you can go back and forth on iterating. You can add those features ahead of, regardless of user feedback you get.
And then it's I think the fun part is as a provider, it's not you, it's like, oh, shoot, yet another requirement. It's just a model regenerating things, right?
Thank you.